Ladies and gentlemen, sit back and relax for the next hour as the CW Reno brings you Old Tales of Nevada. It's an hour of rich Nevada history and current-day success stories hosted by scholar, historian, and world-renowned gold and silver baron Roy Marshall. Brought to you by the Silverland Inn and Suites and the Marshall Mint.
Hello everybody, welcome to Old Tales of Nevada, past and present. We're over here in Lake Tahoe today, right on location at the Tahoe Maritime Museum. We have a great story to tell. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this message. Welcome back to Old Tales of Nevada, past and present. I'm John O'Brien, the moderator for the group here on our set today, and we have an illustrious group with us. As usual, we have Neil Cobb. He's our honorary curator for the Nevada Historical Society. Glad to be with us this day, Neil, and up here in this beautiful setting
good to see you too,
Lake
John.
Tahoe.
Yeah.
Beautiful, yeah.
Oh, what a setting.
Yeah, and then we have Christine Shook, and she is the, I'm going to get this right, Exhibit Collections Associate here at the Tahoe Maritime Museum. And then next to me is a new transplant from New York, the state of New York, up around Syracuse. And her name is Laura Nadolski, and she's the executive director for the Tahoe Maritime Museum. It's a very unique setting here, right next to the Homewood Ski Resort and looking out towards the lake. So what a beautiful place to come to work to every day.
We're very fortunate. We're lucky to come right along Lake Tahoe every day.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
Be right here with the ski area in the back area.
Yeah, well, it's glad to, we're glad to have you with us on the show today. We have a lot of questions about the museum, and we have some beautiful exhibits behind us that we're going to talk about and explore a little bit, as well as Lake Tahoe itself. So glad to have you with us. But tell us, Christine, have you lived on the lake all these years?
No, I actually originally came from Orange County. I've lived in Lake Tahoe now 2.5 years.
2.5 years, great. And you just came about a month ago.
About a month ago.
Oh.
Brand new transplant.
Yeah, you were on the St. Lawrence River.
Yes.
Back there running another museum.
I was working for a public programming department of another maritime museum, and so enjoy the boats and the history of them.
Yeah, well, this is the place to do that. We just want to go back to Neil here for a couple of minutes, because Neil always tells us why we do the show in absence of our other show host, Roy Marshall.
I think his name's Roy Marshall.
Yeah, Roy Marshall, out of sight, out of mind. But he runs a couple of great enterprises up there on the Comstock.
Yes, he certainly does. He has two enterprises. Since one of them started off not to be the charity that it had been for a while, but he's got a new manager there at the Silver.
Yeah, Robert.
Really turned things around.
Yeah.
And now with the activity up in the Comstock, all of the camel races, the rest of the things that we have up at Virginia City, the place has been packed. So we're doing great. Plus, he's got another facility called the Marshall Mint.
Right.
And he takes actual Comstock silver, processes himself, makes ingots, stamps these things, the whole works.
Yeah.
He's a talented man. But in this museum, you have the girls that know all about the estate jewelry that they sell there. And we're going to bring them on here in the
Next couple of weeks.
couple of shows. Yes,
Right.
we
We're
are.
going to explore that whole
and let them
facility.
tell you a little bit about things. But they're experts in their field. But the other half of the structure that they have is a mini museum. And he's got, starts off with a 5-pound gold nugget. I mean, well, that's a lead. Yeah. And just all of the different ore samples that he's got and implements for mining itself. And the man is a wealth of knowledge there. Yeah. And he's got his own mine, plus most of the holdings underneath this, the city. Plus, he's reactivated the Sutro mine, not the tunnel, but the mine.
The mine.
And he's been able to process that. But he could not understand why we here in Nevada didn't stand up and toot our horn like they do in Texas, where he's from.
A lot of pride in Texas.
Because he says you have so much to be proud of. Yes. The history is incredibly important, and the color is outstanding. Right. I mean, we are unique, plain and simple. And all around Lake Tahoe is just an extension of it. And so that's why we have the ladies on today, because they're as much Nevadan as they are California.
Exactly. We work together very well.
About that. But he wanted to make sure that we would bring the education out so you knew that you had something to be proud of. That's the whole reason for the program, to instill the pride and where you live.
That's exactly right. And we've done, this is our 131st episode, actually.
131st.
Yeah,
Can
pretty
you believe
amazing.
that?
Now, along with what you, Roy, is doing for history, you also have been a publisher and author. You just put out a new book, which we're going to talk about
Yeah,
in a
we're
couple
going to
of
have
weeks.
a chance to talk about that. I'm real
Reno
excited
Now and
about
Then,
it.
Volume 2.
Yeah, we finally got the shipment yesterday.
Great.
Yeah, it was,
Looking forward to seeing
it was a big day. Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can I have a complimentary copy?
You might be able to get a preview.
Yeah, well, he might get it. He might get it at wholesale.
And then your magazine.
Yeah, we've got the
Nevada
magazine, and of course we have the current issue out right now, and there's a story about these two angry authors.
Yeah, I wonder who they be.
Grumpy authors.
Grumpy old men.
Grumpy, that's I'm one of them.
You're one of them.
And so it gives you a little bit of an insight on what it took to put the book together, and it's a nice article by Guy Clifton, who writes for the Gazette Journal. A talented man. But we've got other articles in here. There's one, a nice fold-out. I was talking to the ladies earlier. We want to do the same thing on this museum. But you'll find in the current issue on the Elko's Northeastern Nevada Museum.
Okay.
And it is a beautiful inset on there. Yeah, you want to pick this up either at the Historical Society, the Flag Store, Sundance Books. It's in a bunch of other places now. Or look us up on the net. That is NevadaInTheWest.com.
All right.
And we neglected one thing.
What's that?
I always ask you for a telephone number.
Oh, for the
For
Silverland?
the Silverland.
847-4484.
John, thank you.
You're welcome very much. Okay, let's get back to our guest, our topic at hand here. Let's remind everybody where we're at. We are on the, what shore is this?
We're at the West Shore.
West Shore, okay. And we're right next to a
Homewood Ski
landmark.
Resort, yes.
Yeah, been there for years, right?
You can't miss us because you come right down the road, see Homewood, and we're right next to the parking lot
Right
there.
next. Beautiful new building. Only been here since when?
2008.
2008. So it still smells new.
Yes.
But great facility, right next to the lake. You can see the lake through some of the cabins there, but very close to the lake. And Lake Tahoe, the gem of lakes probably in the world. I don't know of any other lake that's quite as famous as Lake Tahoe. You know?
There's not a lot, and so she is known around the world of being this beautiful place and beautiful recreation site.
They say it's one of the most photographed places in the world, you know, as far as tourists go and everything else. But very famous for its maritime activities. And started very early in the history of Tahoe with people on the lake because of what happened up there at the Comstock, right?
Right.
It wasn't. Tell us what the lake was originally used for in support of the Comstock.
The lake was originally the transportation. Since you couldn't get around, there weren't the roads going around the lake, and not all the trains were set up yet. And actually the lumber industry was helping with the Comstock mines as well as the building of the railroads. And so the boats were first here on the lake for transporting the people to and from the mines, the goods to and from the mines, as well as the lumber industry.
So a lot of the miners, I guess, came from the California side of the lake, and so they would come over, grab the whatever, a steamer, I suppose, and then they would come over to the east side, and what would they do? Take the train from there over to the hill, I suppose.
Yeah, there was a narrow gauge train over in Glenbrook.
Okay.
The D.L. Bliss family, they ran that. And that went down into Carson City, Virginia City areas where they could do the mining down there.
All right. And then they would catch the V&T, I suppose, or a wagon to take them up. It was before the train. So a lot of activity going back and forth. Very commercial at one point, right? And besides using the boats for that kind of thing, they also used it to haul lumber across the lake as well?
They were using it for hauling lumber, and again, any of the goods that were needed for the mines, for the operation, for the lumber industry. You would have the supplies going back and forth to the camps. So those would be coming up and then transported off of the trains and transported across the lake.
Right. Now, did they start with like sailboats, or was there an immediate need for a steamer type of boat? What was...
It was pretty early on, going right to the steamers.
Right to the steamers, huh? And where did that technology get developed? Was it right here on the lake? Was there a manufacturer of that kind of a boat? right here? Anybody know?
Well, they're not the steamers. The steamers weren't built up here. One of the most famous steamers from Tahoe is the SS Tahoe, and she was quasi-built up here because she actually built down in San Francisco, and then they took her apart and hauled her up here and then reassembled up here and launched in Glenbrook.
Okay.
So that's about as close as you get to building the steamers.
Okay.
There were other families that would build boats like rowboats and things like that. The Pomine family is very famous around here for kind of making the Tahoe lifestyle possible.
Okay. That was more for the tourism side, right? The rowboats and the canoes and that kind of a vehicle.
And the fishing industry.
And the fish. Oh, that's right. Yeah, fishing. I forgot about that. Used to be big commercial fishing here. What was the main catch? Do you know what?
Lahontan.
Lahontan cutthroat, like my big fish.
Like your big fish, exactly.
You still have that picture, John, that we can show? Oh, we do. Okay. So we'll show that as we talk about that today. It's gorgeous fish, by the way. Took a lot of skill to get that on the boat. But so they used to catch them by the hundreds, huh?
Yes, and those were in small boats and up to the larger steamers. So people were going out who were participating in that fishing industry, and they were using everything from a small rowboat or as it moved on into an upward motor or something, or the steamers.
Yeah. Did they use nets to catch the fish in those days?
That's they would be pretty deep down.
Oh, okay.
They use copper line to get them up.
Oh, really? Wow. That must have been something to see, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. So a lot of that fish was, in again, support of the Comstock activities, taken right up there to the mines, to the restaurants, because there were some pretty good restaurants up there in Virginia City back in those days, like the International Hotel had a beautiful restaurant that used to serve oysters and fish, and it was pretty amazing what they were able to serve up there. So great, history here about the support of the mining activities, huh? So, but mining, I suppose, petered out, and the lumber petered out. You were saying, Neil, that the hills around here were pretty
They
devoid
were just
of
absolutely level, clear cut.
Yeah.
Lumbering, it was just, I look at these pictures and it gives me kind of a sick feeling. It's that they did that, this beautiful area, because a forest fire, after it's done, didn't look as bad as these lumber people.
You know, if you look closely, like over at Glenbrook area there, you can see all the stumps where they cut the trees. I suppose you have the same condition here.
This side too.
Yeah. So that was, did they have mills here and things too, right here, like in the Homewood area too?
Not in Homewood. Over on the East Shore, they had the Hobart Mills. And
okay.
But
So
not in Homewood.
then they would send it across over to Virginia City. That's great. So what has happened is that you've been able to collect a lot of these boats and maritime, I guess is the way you describe it, right? Maritime artifacts, and bring them into the building here and for everybody to see. So they not only get the history of the lake, but they can actually see some of these vessels that were used. Right?
Yeah, it's one of the locations where you get to get up close and personal with these large artifacts.
Yeah.
And some of them, and Christine will talk more about it as we go through the day, but some of them have been brought up from the lake.
Yeah.
And so they have a rich history here, and it's one of the only places where you get to get up right close and personal with them, unless you are a collector of these antique and classic boats.
Now, if I were to come into the museum here in Homewood, would there be somebody to explain the history of the boats? Is there always somebody available to, or is it all self-guided?
It's mostly self-guided. Christine and myself and our other staff are always here.
Okay.
And so if there are any questions as we're going through, we're happy to answer questions. And we also will do some specialized group tours too.
Okay. Now, do you have a paid staff for the, which is fairly small, I would say?
Yeah, we're 4 full-time staff
4
members.
full-time, and we hear that all over the place about staffing these museums, which is kind of a shame because they could always use more help.
Right.
Anyway, we're going to come back and get really into depth about, and that's no pun intended, but about Lake Tahoe and some of these artifacts we have here in the museum. So stay tuned. We'll be back after these messages. We're back here in Old Tales of Nevada, past and present. Actually, we're over the state line. We're actually in California at the Homewood area.
Well, that's the part of California we claim too, remember?
Okay, whatever you say, Neil, you're the man. And we're here right next to the Homewood ski resort. You're probably familiar with that. And right next door is this beautiful building that houses these historic boats that have been used here on Lake Tahoe. And as we left our last segment, we were talking about the many different kinds of boats. The earliest of which, I suppose, were the ones that the Indians used, because there were tribes around here. Was it the Washoe tribe that originally here? And they used it for fishing and from getting from point A to point B. They were honed right out of logs, right? Weren't they?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
They were made right out of the logs that were cut down here.
Yeah, there were logs, and they also made them out of weeds, tool.
Oh,
so
really?
they had two different kind of styles. But
No kidding.
yeah, we're really hoping to help. Right now in this current exhibit we have here, we work with the Washoe tribe to bring in some of their history into this exhibit, the 1930s.
Okay.
What was going on with them in during that period. And next year we're doing a ghost ship exhibit. It's
Oh,
about
wow.
boats that sank, and
yeah.
we're working with them to work in their mythology of what happened out on the lake, and as well as they have a canoe that they salvaged from the lake. So we're really hoping to get that in here to tell a full, complete story of Tahoe's maritime history.
Yeah. Now this lake, I would imagine, is kind of difficult to navigate, especially when the wind's blowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It gets pretty rough.
Yeah.
And again, that's what can lead to some of these boats going down.
Yeah.
If they have some trouble, the storms that blow up across the lake will
Yeah.
make some big waves.
You spotted one boat that's on the bottom of the lake. Is there any chance of ever being able to pull that up and make an exhibit? Is there enough of it left, or could that be done?
There definitely is a bunch of enough boats down underneath the water to make an exhibit.
Got an excellent supply.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Laura was telling me there's actually hundreds of boats actually at the bottom that they know
I
about.
don't think there's a full number that of
Yeah.
known boats
No.
because of the different depths with how deep the lake is.
Yeah.
Some are able to be seen from the top. Some you have to know where the boat might have gone down, and others they've never been able to locate.
Yeah.
With how
Now
deep
let's
the lake
let's
actually
tell
is.
people how deep this lake is. It's not a shallow lake by any means.
No, it's 644 feet.
Yeah,
1600, yes, I'm sorry.
1,644 feet. Which, and you were telling me that if it was drained,
It would
cover California and what amount?
about a foot of water.
About a foot of water, all of California. Unbelievable. And then if we were going east, if we poked a hole into Mount Rose there and let that water drain, what would it do to Carson City?
Well, actually you soak Reno, but
It's so Reno, yeah.
but the bottom of the lake is about the same level that Carson City's at.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty amazing to think about, isn't it? So you can see why when boats sink here, they're hard to find, probably.
Yes.
Yeah. And did a lot of them sink because of the storms, or just poor maintenance? What was the story? What part of the lake, by the way, is the worst part of the lake? Is this the north side that gets the biggest problem with waves and destruction? Do you think?
It seems like it, but I'm over on the West Shore more often, so
Okay.
I don't know exactly which side will get it, but it's the eastern winds that will really pick up, and you've got to watch out for those.
Okay, the east winds. Okay, so coming
So-
back from Nevada into
Yeah.
California, the worst that you can have, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, because when we get storms in Reno, our worst winds, first of all, come from the south, west to the northeast.
Right.
So I don't know if that works the same way over here on this side of the hill. But anyway, when you're out there on the lake, if you're not, alert, you can be caught rather quickly in some terrible storms.
Any of these lakes, Lake Pyramid.
Pyramid's terrible.
If you see the dark clouds on the north,
Yeah.
get out of the water.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's going to come on you, and it's going to come on you in a hurry.
Yeah.
Well, you have the same danger in any lake. When you're not prepared to deal with water that is unruly, and the chances of being sunk, or not prepared for it, or killing the engine, and you're out.
You're out there.
The whole thing, you got to use your head.
Yeah. So now, does your exhibit comprise all these boats that have been found at the bottom of the lake, or do you have boats that have been donated that are in really good shape, a combination of, how do you comprise your exhibits?
Our exhibits and our collection are made up of all boats that have been donated, as well as loans. And so depending on the topic that we're featuring, we'll borrow boats from either a collector or another organization. The current exhibit behind us features the 1930s.
Okay.
And so we borrowed a boat, Mercury, behind us, and if you
Beautiful.
can see her glimmering there,
Yeah.
she's a duraluminum boat that was built and raced in the 1920s.
Really?
And so she won the first President's Cup in 1926.
On what water?
The Potomac.
Oh, the
That was on
Potomac,
the
right
Potomac.
outside Washington.
And so that was her racing career, was more on the East Coast. But then Stanley Dollar, who was here from the North Shore, was a racer and bought her and brought her to Lake Tahoe, and then continued to race her here on Lake Tahoe.
Did they have a reputation for doing races on Lake Tahoe?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Tahoe Powerboat Club formed
Yeah.
in 1925, and in the 30s they changed their name to the Tahoe Yacht Club, and they continued racing into the 80s. And since then, now they do the annual Concours d'Elegance boat show up here.
Oh, yeah, that just happened, didn't it, in August?
Yeah, in August,
Yeah, August, yeah. Now, that comprises mostly of wooden boats, right?
Mostly.
Yeah, mostly wooden boats.
Yeah,
But is
again,
it-
from the 20s, it's a little unusual to have a race boat made out of metal. Most
Yeah,
of them were
yeah.
wood that it was competing
Yeah,
against.
and how fast would a boat like that Mercury go on the lake here?
Well, when she won the President's Cup, she went 58.5 miles per hour.
That's amazingly fast for those
Well, you-
days, you know?
They had the unlimited hydroplanes up here and racing for a
Oh,
while.
did they?
I
Yes.
don't know if they still do that.
No, there's no racing on the lake now.
There's no racing. I know that.
Why is that? Is because of the
Bill
noise
Hara had-
factor, pollution,
yeah.
what?
Yeah, noise and pollution,
Yeah.
and just being aware of the community around us. They did try to do a race last year and just didn't work out.
Oh,
So they were able to get everything up, they just couldn't get the boats up here.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so also, boats will operate differently in Tahoe than they will at the ocean level. So you have to be aware of that when you bring your boat up here, so.
the
You gotta
altitude.
completely
The altitude.
retune it just because of the thin air.
There's only certain kinds of boats that can be on the lake right now, isn't there, as far as engine types are
Yes,
concerned?
yes. So you won't see the two-stroke outboards anymore
right.
because those, again, for environmental reasons, have been banned from the lake. So we have quite a few of them in our collection.
Yeah, you do.
Because there's a history of them here,
Yeah.
but they're not seen on the lake anymore.
How many boats do you have in your possession for the museum between storage and on the exhibit right now?
Not including loans, we have 33.
33. So is that up from years past, or is that about where you try to be, or?
It's definitely up from years past. We actually just got a brand new old boat. It's called Percy II. She's a Century Coronado, sorry.
That's a Coronado.
And she's actually over in Zephyr Cove.
Okay.
And the owner of her was one of the constables down in Zephyr Cove, South Lake Tahoe area.
Okay, is that a wood boat as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have some storage in another place to keep other artifacts. It'll be worked into exhibits down the line. It was over in Truckee or something, did you say?
Yeah, we have an annex over in Truckee, and we switch exhibits every year. So when we switch exhibits, we get to take these boats out and feature new boats. So we're always swapping out the boats, so you can get a really good idea of our collections coming in and out throughout the year. And we also do open houses in our annex in Truckee during the summer, so you can come and take a tour of that.
Okay. Now, when you get these boats, some of them are in beautiful shape, like they're loans from the actual owners. And these people who own wood boats, they're very, very careful about them, aren't they, as far as
Yes.
the way they keep the condition up and all that kind of thing? But what happens if you get a derelict boat, say one that sank in the lake? Do you try to restore it, or do you leave it in its derelict condition, or its original condition?
I think you've talked about it.
I think you're talking about Shanghai.
Shanghai. We'll take a look
Yeah.
at Shanghai.
Yeah, Shanghai. Well, any boat that we get, and when it's given to us in the collection, no matter if it sank or if it came in, the owner just had it from the Concours d'Elegance, they have it up to the 9th. We try to keep it in the condition that it came to us in, because that condition tells the story of the boat as it came to us.
Yeah, and that's what I was hoping that you would do, because you really want to see it. I'd love, I mean, I saw the boat, the Shanghai, and we'll show that on our screen today, but it looks exactly like it did when it came up out of the lake.
Exactly.
Not too bad a
Yes.
shape, really.
No,
You
for
know.
how long she was
How
down
long was
there.
it down there?
They believe she sank in the 30s. Her propeller was stamped with 1937.
Okay.
So there's no exact date that she sank, but
Okay.
they believe after 37. And we raised her in 2000. Actually, it was her the museum project to raise her up. She was the first boat in our collection.
Okay, now why did that sink? Do they know why it sank?
They think she kind of came off of her mooring one night and drifted out into the lake and went down, because there's no other damage seen on the boat. And so she's in really original and good condition for the fact that she had been on the bottom of the lake
So the
for about
engine
70
compartment
years.
is still there, and so if you want to see a steamer, you can really see it there, right?
The engine's not there, but you can see the different areas of the boat and the seats and how it was built, parts of the top and everything.
What happened to the engine?
Not sure.
I mean, wasn't it in 400 feet of water you were telling me?
No,
No.
yeah, about 300.
300, well, that's deep enough, you know. Who would go down there and steal the engine? What about those engines? They were all made of steel, weren't they?
They were heavy.
Steel and a lot of copper with steamers.
Yeah. Now, that was used, that steamer was used to haul barges, I suppose, right? It was a lumber kind of
Yeah, well, this one actually was owned by Obexers, and Obexers is the oldest marina here on Lake Tahoe.
Where is that
And
located?
it's actually not even a mile down the road
No
from
kidding.
us. They're our neighbor right here on Homewood. And Jake Obexer was a fisherman originally, and then he saw the need for fuel to be transported around the lake. And so he started to work with Standard Oil and distribute fuel around the lake and start a marine operation.
Yeah.
So-
All right. So I would imagine there were some larger, for lack of a better word, camps or docks around the lake that needed to be serviced on a regular basis. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Let's take a break here, and we'll come back. I want to talk more about some of these boats and vessels you have behind us, because it's very interesting history here on Old Tales of Nevada, past and present. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back here in Old Tales of Nevada, past and present. Just to remind everybody who we are, I'm John O'Brien, I'm the host, and then next to me over on the my far left,
As far as
right?
you can get me.
Yeah, as far away as I can get is Neil Cobb, the honorary curator for the Nevada Historical Society. He's the one that coordinates our show and brings our guests to us, like the folks here at the Tahoe Maritime Museum, which is located at Homewood, right next to the Homewood ski area. You'll find this beautiful building built in 2008. And we have Christine and Laura with us. They're the ones that are here every day, taking care of these exhibits and helping people to know the history of Lake Tahoe and the vessels that crisscross this lake over the last century or so, at least, right? Starting from the Indians, the Washoe tribe, all the way to modern day. And it's kind of interesting, isn't it, that the transitions that this lake has had as far as uses and the boats that were used, and it went from commercial.
Went from very commercial to recreation. And it was D.L. Bliss really recognizing that the lumber industry was winding down. And that's again when he ordered the steamer Tahoe, so that could be for recreation and service the tourism trade.
Yeah, that was a large boat.
It was a very large boat, 169 feet.
Isn't that amazing?
And so she came up here in sections and then was put together and launched into the lake.
Now, was that like the Tahoe Queen kind of design? So we can just get a mind's eye view of it here. Was it that kind of a boat?
No, it wasn't a paddle wheeler.
No, it wasn't a paddle wheel.
No. What powered it? Steam.
Steamed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
With
And
propeller.
so a very long, sleek, narrow boat. And actually, in most of the postcards you would see are the old steamers going through about the 1940s.
Okay. And how many people could you put on a boat like that?
On Tahoe, you actually could put about 200 people.
Really?
And she also had the mail contract to deliver mail all around the lake.
Like from Camp Richardson over
From
to...
going all the basically she would leave Tahoe City and do an 8-hour loop around the lake.
Took that long.
And so it would be delivering people and goods and the mail. And Christine's been telling me about how she also acted as a babysitter some of the time.
Wow.
So.
Yeah.
No kidding. That's amazing. Yeah, I keep saying it's amazing because it is. The story about the lake just gets to me. But what did it cost, for example, for a customer to hop on the Tahoe and go from one side of the lake to the other? Was it $1, $2, 2 bits, whatever?
That is an excellent question that I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure
Yeah.
of.
And how long of a trip would it be normally on a boat like that?
Again, it would depend where you were headed.
Yeah.
And so her full loop was the 8 hours.
8 hours.
So you might have been, depending on how far around the lake you were going to be headed, you might have been on the boat for an hour, or you might have been on it for about 8.
8 hours. You'd get food and drink and all that
yes.
kind of thing. Maybe even entertainment, I suppose.
I'm not sure about the entertainment, but the boat was well appointed, and so there would have been a salon forward for the ladies, what they would have called the smoking salon for the gentlemen, and or you could go out onto her decks and enjoy
Just
the
enjoy
view.
the beautiful. And I've been out like on the Tahoe Queen. There's nothing like being out in the middle of that lake on a beautiful day or night, for that matter. When did the paddle wheels start coming on?
The first would be MS Dixie.
Oh, okay.
She came up about in the late 40s, 48.
All right. So it's a long history there too.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. Now, what happened to the Tahoe, Miss Tahoe?
Miss Tahoe,
Yeah.
when she lost her mail contract, she
Yeah.
wasn't. That was really what also supplemented her price, and also the roads were built at that time, so people weren't using her as much for the full transportation around the lake, and she started to not be used, and also it was hard to afford to keep her up and maintain her without the mail contract. So she went out of service, and ultimately she was being threatened for being scrapped for metal. And it was then that she was actually scuttled by the Bliss family, and so
Scuttled right in Lake Tahoe.
scuttled right in Lake Tahoe. So she's down about 400 feet now.
Wow. Now, you were telling me that they've designated that boat, gave it a special
That is
identity.
Nevada's first underwater historic site.
Wow.
And so that was in 2000, and so so Nevada, it was the state's first underwater historic
So if I
site.
went down there, I would see that boat in pretty good shape, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, because you were saying earlier that there's not a lot of things in the lake to destroy it like you would in, say, the ocean.
Right. The temperatures and basically the makeup of the lake and what organisms are in the lake or what organisms are not in the lake actually help preserve a lot of the boats that are down underwater.
So they named it a historical site, but how do you get to see it? You know?
You gotta be a diver or you gotta know somebody with robotics.
Robotics,
And get some of the pictures or images.
Do they have those kind of concerns up here? I mean, those kind of enterprises where you can go and get in one of those diving bells and go down into the lake?
You can't actually go down there. What they have done in the past is they'll take a submersible and you'll sit on the deck and they'll take the submersible down with a camera and so you can look at it through
So
the
you can
camera
look at
screen.
it. Well, that's got to be a tremendous experience to see that. Now, was that the only boat like that on the lake, or did they have a number of boats like the Miss Tahoe that went around the lake?
She was the queen of the lake. There were a number of other ones, smaller sizes, but she was really the well-known steamer that went around the lake.
Okay. So the Tahoe Queen, and what's the other one?
Tahoe Gal
Yeah, there's
and
two of
MS
them.
Dixie too.
MS Dixie. They're about the only two that are out there running tourists back and forth across the lake, right?
Well, we also do a ride boat program for our members.
Oh, you do?
And so it's not in the giant boats.
Yeah, it's in things like this, right?
Our ride boat right now is a Stardust. She's a 1934 Chris Craft. And she was actually originally one of the ride boats for Meeks Bay back in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
Okay. Yeah.
So we returned her back to her former life as a ride boat for our members.
Oh, yeah. We were on the Thunderbird over at the Whitell Mansion. It was
Yes.
an amazing boat. That's all made of wood, mostly wood, and we had an opportunity to do a show there. That was a great experience too. We couldn't get out on the lake that day because that would have been down the bottom of the lake if it was. That was like
when
4
he
foot
fired up
swells.
the engines, that whole,
Yeah.
that was something
Yeah,
else.
but it was like 4 or 5 foot swells over
Yes.
there on that side of the lake. It was pretty amazing that day. So these people have these boats, and I would imagine in some of these garages and storage areas around the lake, there's some magnificent pieces of
Yes,
boats.
In art.
Yeah,
The
actually
boats
art.
really are art.
Yeah. Now, most of them were built away from the lake, as far as these wood boats go. These, I guess, what would you
Pleasure
call them?
craft.
Pleasure crafts,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
pleasure crafts. And Chris Craft, I suppose, was one of the big builders of the wood boats.
You have the big names that are known throughout North America that the boats were brought here to Lake Tahoe. Chris Craft, Dodge, Garwoods. So
Stevens.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
My
Stevens.
friend brought up his Stevens. He had a 1937. I think it was 37 feet long. Yeah.
But most
And
of
it
them are
was just
pretty
wonderful.
old wood boats. I mean, is there anybody building modern day wood pleasure craft like
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
this?
oh
Like
yeah.
retro?
Yep, there are
designs?
people taking some of the old designs and building to the same original designs, or there are people who are kind of making their own new designs. And there's also restoration shops. Here, Obexers does some, as well as here at Boatworks, right here on the lake. And then going away from the lake, actually back towards the coast, there are some more boat builders. And so they'll be building their own new boats out of wood, or they'll be doing restorations.
What's the in the exhibit? What would you classify as your most interesting wood boat? What has the what has the history? The most interesting history, is it that boat right there?
Well, the most interesting history as far as Lake Tahoe goes would
Yeah.
definitely be White Smoke.
A white smoke. Okay, tell
White
me
Smoke.
about it.
She's a sea lion, 1930, 30-foot long sea lion. She was owned by the Pope family. People up in Tahoe know about the Vatican Lodge, and that was owned by George Pope.
Okay.
And of course, his last name, Pope, Vatican,
Yeah,
is playing
makes
off
sense.
his last name.
Yeah.
So he purchased that boat and brought her up to Tahoe for his times in the 30s, and he was very careful with her. Said that if guests came and they weren't wearing the right shoes to get in her, he would supply them with the right shoes so they wouldn't scuff her.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, I can imagine boat owners, they're very particular, especially boat owners like this.
Yes.
Yeah. So how long did that operate on the
lake?
Yeah.
Well, she went for about a decade, and when George Pope Sr. passed away, went to his son, he didn't really use it that much. So it kind of went into a barn. And I should say, when the Popes owned her, she didn't have a name.
Oh. Okay.
And so she kind of went into the barn. There's boats that we call barn boats. They go away and
Yeah.
you just randomly find them.
Yeah.
So when one of the popes passed away, Alan Firth, who many people know up here as a huge collector, came up and he did some work on the property for on the estate for the family. And they said, "What do you want us to pay you? We want to pay you something." They were friends, but he's like, "We want to pay you something." He's like, "All I want is that boat."
He knew what he was after,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
And then as a play off the Pope name, since when they elect a new Pope, they send White Smoke up the chimney.
Sure.
So now her name is White Smoke.
Okay, good.
And so he completely restored her and got her back on the lake.
Yeah. Now, what are some of these boats worth, like that boat that you're talking about, the White Smoke? What would that be valued at today?
Well, we really don't put values on our boats because a lot of the value is in their historic nature.
Right.
So,
right.
but you're looking at six figures for
6 figures.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Wow.
Start at 6.
Yeah, wow, that's a pretty amazing amount there. I'm going to start collecting boats. Listen, we got to take another break, and we'll come back for our, I think it's our last segment, actually. So stay tuned. We'll get into some of the activities right here in the museum and how you can be part of it if you'd like, or come visit right after we hear from our sponsors. We're back here for our last segment on Old Tales of Nevada, past and present, and having a great time up here in the Lake Tahoe area, actually at Homewood, if you're familiar with that, on the west side of the lake. We're right next to the ski area, and we're in the Tahoe Maritime Museum, in a building that's been especially built for housing vessels that were in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, the museum started in '87, and at first we didn't have a location, and so we kind of moved around the lake. And then our board purchased an old motel right here next to the Homewood Ski Resort, and so the museum started where we were first displaying our boats in the old motel rooms, and then decided that it was time to really give the museum a permanent home. And so this building was constructed in 2008, and it was purposely built so that we could get our large artifacts on display and in and out of the building, and make it easy so that Christine, when she does our exhibit turnovers every year, she can get the boats in and out that she wants in for the new exhibit.
Yeah, because I would imagine back in the old days, they might have built buildings where they built the building around the boats, and then it's like shipping a bottle. You know, how do you get it out? You have to tear the wall down. So you're very smart to put that door in. Yeah, very good thinking. So the museum is especially built for anything maritime, and the exhibit changes all the time.
Every year.
Every year. And people can come in 6 days a week?
In the summertime,
Yeah.
we're 6 days a week. We're closed on Wednesdays. And then in the wintertime, we're 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday we're open.
So even in the
All
snow,
year long,
you could go over and ski and then come over and, you know, relax
Exactly.
a little bit.
Come right over after
Yeah.
you take your boots
Do you
off.
get that kind of traffic?
That's what we like here,
Yeah.
and we get some of the skiers, and we're hoping to attract more of them.
Yeah. Now, are there restaurants close by in Homewood where someone could, you know, make a day of it if they can?
Oh yeah. Right across the street is a full restaurant, and then you can also go down to Obexer's in the general store and pick up a sandwich.
Yeah.
So it depends what
And isn't
you're looking
Sunnyside
for.
close by as well?
Sunnyside is just up the
Yeah.
lake a little bit.
Yeah, and that's
so,
a beach and an outdoor eating area.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty nice over there. I think I've been there.
Have you got a website?
We do. www.tahoemaritime.org.
Oh, boy.
So on that website, you can see the boats and.
You can see our collection and history of the boats, what exhibit is the current exhibit being featured, as well as look through some of our past exhibits.
Okay.
It lists all of our education programs that we do for both children and adults and families, and all the information you need on contacting the museum is there.
What kind
on
of
the website.
preservation programs are you involved with? What do you do? I mean, it's all about boats, but
It's-
how does it manifest itself?
All of our whole collection is donated
Okay.
to us, and so we're constantly searching for new donations. We get some new donation offers on a regular basis, and we evaluate what boats we might want to take into the collection, as well as Christine's actually always looking for memorabilia and any other history related items to the lake.
Now, how do you go about doing that? Do you email? Do you just, you're just, like a detective out there searching for the old barns and looking for the.
Well, you actually would be surprised by you talk to somebody. I work at the Tahoe Maritime Museum. Oh, I have this over, blah, blah, blah. They go right into stuff.
They go right into it, yeah. Or my grandfather has this boat in the barn over here.
Yep, and actually I do also oral histories where I'm working to get some of the memories from people who've been in the community a long time.
Oh, nice.
So-
Very nice. Yeah, that's what our show is really about, because many of our guests don't write a book, and so the only way you find out what's in here is to put them on camera and actually interview them and ask a lot of questions and draw them out, and it's amazing.
It is, yeah.
What kind of history these people
You have to have some people that are really behind you. The fundraising to build this building, to make that a successful endeavor,
Yes.
that's something else. So you have to have people that really believe in what you have here.
Yeah.
That-
Was
and
there
that's-
a principal benefactor, or was it a group of people?
It was a group of people. We've had a lot of strong supporters through our time. We have our membership starts at $40,
Oh, that's nice.
and so that supports our general operations. And then we go right up through donors that are giving for for this building a capital campaign. We have private foundation support. We have governmental support. Some grants that we get for different programs. So we're well funded, but we're always looking for more funding so that
Yeah.
we can do more, especially with our outreach and education programs. We're
Yeah.
always trying to do more.
Yeah,
with
do you go
those.
into the schools and
Yes.
talk about
Yep.
the
We have a
history of
traveling
Tahoe?
trunk
Oh,
program
okay.
that our educator will take out to the schools and talk about the whole history of Lake Tahoe from the Native Americans through present day. And then we also welcome groups to come here and tour the museum, doing field trips and going through. So.
Now, do you find that the high school kids, the younger kids, do they have a desire to learn history? Is that a curiosity they have and look forward to these kind of presentations?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of getting to our young folks, and some absolutely love it, and others you got to kind of bring them along and show them that it's a pretty cool thing. With our artifacts, it's kind of neat to be able to take somebody who says, "Oh, well, I'm not really interested in boats or history, but maybe they're an engine person." And the technology, they like
Sure.
that, and so that can draw them in.
Yeah, I find like with our show, some people, they may not have a particular interest in a particular historical item or subject, but once you get into the show and you start having a conversation, people always tell me we're kind of drawn into it, you know, because they never heard it before.
Right.
They never heard
A lot
of
of things they never heard of. I'd like Tom McCulley, the guy they call the Iceman with the ice harvesting business, and we never knew they did that.
Yeah.
That's right in our back.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of telephone calls and stuff.
Oh yeah, we get that all
God,
the
that
time.
was-
And the same thing will happen with a show like this, because maritime industry on Tahoe is a little known historical area, but it's very, very important and had a lot to do with the development of the Comstock and the success of that operation up there. So it's good in many ways. And now, of course, it's world renowned for tourism.
Right.
Yeah. What do people say when they come in from, say, China or Australia, or are they blown away as well by?
I think they're shocked by the boats and the collection here that we have, and the exhibits and the history. Again, that people don't quite know what the history is, and they're kind of here now. If they're visiting for recreation, they might be skiing or they might be hiking, and they're not necessarily thinking about that they're going to a museum, and they kind of walk in and are surprised about what they find out when they're here.
What's nice about this area, because I've been on this road at holidays, and there's so many people on bikes. There's a big bike walk path or whatever it is that goes almost around the whole lake, doesn't it? So actually, you could hop on a bike and take in this museum. There's another one down in Tahoe City, isn't there?
Right. Yes. You'll
Gatekeeper.
The Gatekeeper
yes.
Museum. Yeah, we had them on our show as well. So
Right.
we're hitting them all as we work around the lake here.
And there's a reason for that. You know what that is? You're important.
Yeah.
What you do is important.
Absolutely.
So that's
Now,
what we're
are there
after.
other museums along the line here, along 89? We're on Highway 89. This goes eventually to Emerald Bay, and then back down around to
The South Lake.
South Lake. Yeah.
There's California State Parks down the road here, with
Okay.
the Erman Mansion and things like that.
Oh, really?
So,
All open for the public. Camp Richardson's down that way.
Yes.
yeah, that's further south, but
Yeah, and if you haven't been to Emerald Bay,
You've got to go
On the
check out
top.
Emerald Bay.
Yeah.
That, and
It's
again, you were
gorgeous.
talking about most photographed. I think
Oh.
that might be it.
yeah. Did you ever find any boats in the bottom over there?
yeah, they've actually done a side sonar scanning in there, and they've located over 50 objects that could be boats.
How far
Is that pretty deep? Is that pretty deep in there?
Yeah.
Pardon me.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Neil. I didn't mean to.
Well, I've got Christina. I was talking to John on the way up here about my friend. We went on that Stevens, and we went over by where they filmed with The Godfather. In the
Florida Lock.
Florida Lock. And talk about beautiful places like that, and the Viking.
Yeah, Viking
Yeah,
Zone.
there's so much all the way around this lake to see.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people, they think they have to leave the country to get history, but you can go 30 miles from Reno into the basin here and learn so much and enjoy so much history, as well as the gorgeous environment.
All the parks are wonderful.
Yeah,
all
aren't
along
they?
the
And in
lake.
wintertime, how many world-class ski facilities do we have?
We have the most here within this
Yeah.
radius
Yeah.
of any other location.
Now, I understand Homewood was purchased by a rather large corporation not too long ago. Is that the
They're the same ones that own West Shore Cafe.
Oh,
And,
okay.
Yeah, and they're looking to develop it now.
develop it further? Yeah, make it a world-class resort. And of course, we had John Killeran on our show. He's the Olympic promoter. He's trying to bring the 22 Olympics, I think, to Tahoe. And this area is going to be very important as far as a transportation hub. Bring people from South Lake on a boat or some kind of craft and bringing it over here, and they're getting it on a tram and taking them over into the ski venues. So that's going to be exciting, huh?
Well, hopefully they come right into the
Right.
museum as they're coming through.
Yeah. Well, listen, we have to close out the show today. We want to thank you, Laura and Christine, for bringing this all to us, because we knew nothing about the history of maritime here in Tahoe. At least I didn't. He probably did. Old Neil over there. But
I learned a
anyway,
lot more than I knew.
really enjoyed it. A great facility. Want to invite people to be here. But for now, we have to close the show. We want to thank you for being an audience today, and we want to wish all of you out there, from me, John O'Brien, have a great Nevada day, and in fact, have a great California day as well. Okay? We'll see you next week.
You've been watching Old Tales of Nevada with your host, Roy Marshall, historian and world-renowned gold and silver baron, presented by the Silverland Inn and Suites and the Marshall Mint in Virginia City. Join us again next Thursday at 1 p.m. on the CW Reno for another edition of Old Tales of Nevada.